So we still have this pile of debris left over here at the bank barn from the roof. We got it all kind of gathered up in a couple of places. This is the main pile right here. We need to start getting that cleaned up. Probably gonna end up digging a hole or just burning this wood and burying it because there's a ton of nails and debris in that. But we do have somebody gonna come and get all the scrap metal and take it off first. But before we do all that, I need to get this whole area mowed down. So in a normal year, we would have bush hogged this whole front pasture, cleaned this whole area up out here in the front, and then started using our mower around the bank barn and the lean-to, just keeping that area really short and clean as we approach winter time. But this year being a little bit different, we're still finding little pieces of debris from the roof spread throughout the whole farm actually. Little pieces out here that we didn't see or that was covered up by grass when we were doing our cleanup. So I was actually over here just a couple weeks ago, ran over a little piece of wood about the size of my hand and had a little nail in it. Punctured one of my brand new tires in the big country that I had to end up plugging. So since we weren't going to be bringing a tractor and a bush hog in over here, I had to come up with another idea. I ended up calling the rental company that we use, talked to them about renting a bush hog for the front of the skid steer. Got the cost of that, and really for the area that I want to do, that was just going to be a little bit out of what the price range was that I was willing to spend. But actually they ended up having a different option for me. So we ended up renting this BillyGoat mower right behind us. It's a brush mower, but it's a walk-behind brush mower. The price to rent this for 2 days was about a quarter of the cost of the bush hog rental for the skid steer. Also, it's going to take a lot less fuel, and really the only downside to it is I'm just going to have to walk a lot more over here cleaning this area up, which will actually kind of help a little bit because any debris that we mow right next to or we find by mowing, I'll be able to just pick up and move. I won't have to climb in and out of the skid steer each time. And overall, I think this will be pretty handy to use. So once they told me they had one of these BillyGoat mowers, I went onto YouTube, I watched videos of people using them, watched everything that it could do and what people were using it for, and I realized that it would work pretty good for what this project is. This thing's actually able to cut up to 2-inch saplings, so that's really good. I'm going to try to get it around some of this fence saplings that we have, see what it does there. But in general, I just really needed to knock down this heavy weed and pasture area that we have right here that we weren't able to get to with the bush hog this year. So I was able to get all this mowing done that I wanted to with that BillyGoat mower. It did a pretty good job for me. It took me about 8 hours to get this whole area done and knocked down the way I wanted it. But going forward into the winter, it'll be a lot nicer to access that lean-to without having all that taller grass in front of it. While using that mower, I was able to actually pick up about 8 to 12 pieces, about a foot long, that we didn't see when we were cleaning up from the barn mess. I picked those up. Some of them have nails in them a little bit more than a 1/2 inch, so I'm kind of glad I went with this. It was pretty cost effective actually, including gas. It was only about $130 to get all this mowed and the rental on the unit. And so I'm pretty happy with it. I just hope to not have to use it again because like I said, with only like a small cutting head like that, I hope that I got all the wood and nails up that were out here. So in the future, I'll just be able to bush hog this because that would take a lot less time. So now we have that area all cleaned up. I got gates back in front of the lean-to there, basically to keep the animals out of the hay that's stored in there. I ended up running electric fence around the pile of scrap here from the roof. Basically, just the bank barn and that pile of scrap are the only things that are fenced out from the rest of the front of the pasture. And so what I want to do now is go ahead and just turn all the belted Galloways back out here into the front. Let them have at it. There's plenty of grass, but there's a lot of weed pressure too that I'm hoping they're trampling down while they're out here grazing. And because we were just using items that we had on hand and our older poly wire, which is thinner than the stuff that we started using this past summer, I actually ended up moving the gate that crosses across the driveway. It's right here right now, and it used to be right up there where those T-posts were. Going forward, I'm gonna move those T-posts down here, set that up right, so that way we have a permanent like electric fence gate right here, and it'll make things a lot more convenient for mowing, for letting the cattle graze, and also it'll cut down the use of about 10 to 15 of these electric step-in posts. And at the cost of a couple dollars a post, that'll save us some time and energy setting those up and having them just sit there most of the year to wrap back up the driveway to where those T-posts are currently. So one thing I really enjoy doing is listening to audiobooks and podcasts, and because I knew I'd be out here mowing for probably 6 to 8 hours, I went ahead and got myself a set of ear protection headphones that had Bluetooth capable, so that way I was able to listen to a book. So while I was out here doing all this mowing, I was listening to a book by Gabe Brown called Dirt to Soil, and it gave me a lot of good ideas. I enjoy learning more and trying to always get better here on the farm. And so one thing I thought about while I was listening to that book and doing this mowing and looking around, this front pasture has some heavy weed presence, especially this year, because we weren't able to bush hog it at all because of fear of getting flat tires or nails in tires. And it just didn't make sense to do it all with that push mower, basically, that I rented. So one thing I think we want to do, me and Rachel have discussed it, is next year pretty much change our whole grazing plan for this whole front pasture. Probably split it up into at least 3, maybe even 4 different little paddocks, and do a little bit more intensive grazing. That does mean that there's going to be a lot of extra work on our end, setting up more fence posts out here, just temporarily to run our polywire on. And also that means we're going to have restricted water access to the creek when we do that. So we're going to have to figure out a way that's convenient but also effective to getting all the animals water while we're doing that. So the Beldies have only been out here for about 10 minutes and they're already starting to make their way across. They're going to do pretty good out here right now just because the temperatures are only going to be in the upper 60s, low 70s for the next week or two, and that just pretty much means they'll probably stay there just because it's fall. And so I'm not too worried about them being out here during the day because there's no shade out here really, other than if they go back down to the feeding floor there and get shade from the bank barn, and that's actually where they were all laying at this morning. But when I opened it up here, they just came on out and started munching away on this grass. So we're just going to let them go. I'll probably come back about 4 or 5 this afternoon. That'll be give them about 4 or 5 hours out here eating and just to see how they're doing.